Hello and welcome to part 3 of our 2001 Kyosho Ultima RB restoration from RC Empire. In the last two videos we firstly went through the unboxing of this really neglected model, followed in the second video by the mechanical restoration of the chassis and all its components back to its former glory, and this came out a real treat, so go check those out. In this episode we will be finishing off the restoration by restoring this tatty old worn out body shell back to almost brand new and preserving the original stickers and decals as we did with the Kyosho RS200 restoration. Unlike the RS200 restoration however, where we used an airbrush to spray the details, in this video we will be using a simple Tamiya spray can, so let's get started. Now as you can see, the old paint has really taken a beating over the years. It is scratched and has worn off all over the shell, with oil and fuel kind of melted and mixed all into it. So the first job of the restoration will be to remove this old paint. Now methylated spirits, as you can see, is good enough to remove some of the softer, looser sections of the paint. And as you can also see, it is very good at removing dirt, which is something I often use it for. But, like with the RS200 shell, we are going to move on to something a little stronger, nitro fuel, and this normally works great. So we're just going to pour a little bit into this pot here, and with an old brush, just start brushing it onto the old paint. And as you can see, the old paint is starting to bubble up and almost melt off. Now the great thing about this is that it will not damage the plastic like something stronger like thinners would do. So you just want to heavily brush the fuel on and just let it soak in and pull up the old paint. You can see there just how easily and cleanly it's coming off, and basically you just want to repeat this until you've got all the paint off. It might take a while and you might need to repeat this a few times to get off the really stubborn paint, but you'll just have to keep working at it and make sure you have all the old paint off, or it could ruin the new layer and give you a poor finish. And eventually you'll be left with something that looks like this, an almost brand new shell, and we've even managed to get the paint out of the smallest little gaps. Now what I've done with the wing, because we want to keep the original stickers and because of the way it's had to be painted, because technically it doesn't have an inside edge, is I've taken off all the paint around it but left the sticker on with the original paint underneath. And when it comes to masking everything up in a minute, we will have to mask up the sticker by itself. Now as mentioned, in terms of paint, we have just gone down to our local hobby store, which you should always support, and picked up this little can of Tamiya silver paint, code PS12. And for a small shell like this should be more than enough to give us a good few layers of paint. Now one of the most important steps, which will save you the most time later on, is always getting the masking right and masking up the correct areas. What we have done here is use this narrow bit of tape to go around the outside edge of the shell, making sure not to overlap the tape under the shell where the paint will be sprayed, or you'll be blocking the surface from getting sprayed. What we are also going to do is get some wider tape and cover the detailed corners and edges and cut it out as we need to. And the reason we are doing this is to fully cover the outside of the body shell, to eliminate overspray and keep the outside clean and shiny. If you don't do this, you will get overspray from the can and have to do a lot of work after trying to remove it, if it is even possible to remove it once it is stuck to the stickers and the outside of the shell. And I'm using tape on the edges just to create a sealed edge. And then go ahead and get a few sheets of newspaper and wrap it around the outside. But before you do that, you want to also make sure all the holes are sealed up, and again, no overspray can get through. And you can use a big piece of tape for that to make sure it seals around the edges. With that done, you will be left with something that looks like this, with the outer surfaces fully sealed and protected, with no overlap onto the underside. And as you can see, we've also sealed up the engine cooling head hole onto the outer side. And with that preparation work done, we will be able to simply spray in nice long strokes along the inside. As mentioned earlier, we also have this sticker on the wing to protect, and what I've done is stuck a piece of tape over it. And very lightly cut around it to only cover and protect the sticker from spray. And with all the prep done, you're now ready to start spraying. Make sure your spray surfaces are nice and clean and free of any oil or debris, and you can use methylated spirits to do this. Just give it a wipe down and let it evaporate. Put some cardboard or something clean onto the floor to work on, and you're ready to go. One thing I like to do before I go spraying straight onto the body is to do a little test spray onto a piece of clear plastic, just to make sure that firstly the can is spraying nicely and the paint is atomizing evenly, and also just to check the colour is as you expect. So just give a little spray and see. Not a lot, you don't need to waste it, just a little spray. And this will also help you gauge how far away from the surface you want to spray, so that you don't go and spray your first line onto the body much too close and get a pool of paint building up on the body. One thing to note with metallic paint is that the spraying technique is a lot more important than with non-metallic. This is because the metallic paint has shiny particles or flakes in it, and if these little flakes don't settle properly or in the correct orientation, they won't shine or glisten in the light. So, if you spray too close with the metallic paint, you can actually see those particles building up and pooling together, creating lighter and darker patches as you can see here. And this is why getting a nice even spray coat with metallic paint is important. Now, we can get to the actual spraying of the body. So just get your body part, give the can a real good shake, and start spraying the parts in nice, long, even strokes of thin, light layers. Don't hold the can in one place for too long, or you'll get an uneven paint job and shades, and maybe even pooling of the paint. Just light strokes and slowly build it up. You can see that with this first layer, it is still see-through, but after a few layers it will start to darken. And whilst one piece is drying off a little, you can start on the other. And again, like with any painting, and like we did with the airbrush, make sure that you almost map out the strokes that you want to do, making sure you can reach all the areas at the correct angle before you even start spraying. Don't get halfway through a spray line and realise something is in the way of your hand movement, or you can't get to a section you wanted to spray. Try and get nice even strokes, and I find it better to do a few big strokes than lots of little ones. So now you can see we've got a nice even first layer, and it's also thick enough that it will dry and go tacky. Sometimes if you spray from too far away, the paint will almost dry before it hits the surface and won't flow or stick onto the surface. And what you want to do is leave the paint to dry between layers just until it gets sticky and tacky, so not fully dry, and then go over it with the next coat, making sure you cover the whole piece. And you can start to see we're getting a really nice even build up of paint on the surface. And make sure that you get the paint all around the edges and don't leave any thin or unpainted bits around the sides. And also make sure that you get a nice even coating of paint in all the gaps, corners, edges and any rounded bits on the body. And eventually you'll get something that looks like this. And this is looking really good. You can see just how nicely it is shining and reflecting in the sunlight, which is exactly what we want with metallic paint. Although it's the other side that will be visible on the body. And again, when you're done with the spray can, just turn it upside down and give it a spray until the paint stops coming out. And this will clean the nozzle and make sure it's not blocked for the next time you go to use it. And actually, there's still a good little bit of paint left in the can. And that is all there is to it for painting. Now we've left the paint to dry for a few days and we're going to peel off the paper and see how it has come out. One thing to note is that we didn't mask the top of the wing when spraying. And we did get a little bit of overspray, but you can just wipe that off with some methylated spirits before it fully dries. But make sure the spirits doesn't rub out the sticker too, so give it a little test first before you go all out. You can see now that the paint is fully dry, and on this side at least it has come out really nice with a bright shine to it. And finally, for the fun bit. There you go, it already looks amazing. Again, be careful when pulling off the tape, especially when it's an old body and you've taped over the stickers. Make sure you don't pull them off too. And as you can see, it looks pretty much perfect. There's no dark patches or uneven patches of paint, and we've got a nice layering which you can't see through, so it's a nice solid coat. And it also shines really well, and I can't wait to see it in the full sunlight. And what's great is that we've managed to preserve the original body and the original stickers. And I'm just going to give it a little wipe down and a clean with some methylated spirits. And that's it. We can now take a look at the body on the chassis and complete the restoration of the Kyosho Ultima RC. And you can check out our Instagram page for some close-up pictures. And this restoration has come up really nicely, from the wheels to the chassis to the body. And the only thing left to do now is fire it up and see it in action. So that's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed this and the last two videos restoring this awesome little buggy. And all that's left to do now is fire it up and get it flying across the field and even on the off-road track and see how it drives. And we'll be back shortly with that video, so keep an eye out for it. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe and comment below if you have any questions or would like to see anything else. I hope you've enjoyed and see you soon.